Is anyone getting chills about Modern Warfare 2026? Because I'm getting chills, alright, maybe of disgust. This game is projected to launch in October, and some content creators have already shared their takes. But what do I think? Honestly, from what I've seen from the trailer, the game looks absolutely... yeah. Today I'm breaking down my initial review of the release trailer, plus my predictions from what's going to happen when the game finally drops. Join us as we dive into the hype and see if Modern Warfare 2026 really has what it takes. Right, so yeah, the bar is so low. Honestly, anything they could make right now would be better than the last 3 titles. Like, am I right? But here we go, a slightly different video today. We're talking about my review, at least of the trailer. As mentioned, some people have already had the chance to play the alpha. Well, I'm not nearly cool enough for that, but after reviewing the trailer and seeing some of the alpha footage, I wanted to share my opinion. And also, can we give credit to this music right now? Aiden Reed Music, big shout out, go check out his channel. I was trying to find some audio for this and I stumbled across this. It's a concept theme, sounds phenomenal. If you made this, Aiden, good job. You deserve many more subscribers than what you have. Many more. Alright, so this is a little bit different since obviously I'm not reading someone else's review, but here I am, I reviewed the trailer and it looks like Call of Duty is exploring a new timeline and conflict. More specifically, the Korean Peninsula with American Marines partnered with Korean nationals. Like, freaking awesome, a breath of fresh air, something new. But pause for a second. Now, as someone who served in the military and was actually stationed in South Korea, this stood out to me. Of course, peep the old picture right here. But Call of Duty seems to be ignoring some realistic aspects of the past and ongoing conflicts. Now, to be very clear, I know Call of Duty is not known for realism, far from it. But I think this is and was a missed opportunity. For example, there is a program called KATUSA, the Korean augmentation to the U.S. Army program, which partners South Korean soldiers with the U.S. Army, not Marines. Marines are typically stationed in Japan, not Korea, at least from what I could see in my experience. So while it's not impossible, it's definitely not the norm. So when I saw that, I was like, well, they're definitely not going for realism because a quick Google search would have found that out. And it's already disappointing. I just wish they would, if these developers are spending all this time on these games, I just wish they would attempt a new approach. Like, put your money where your mouth is. You guys saying you're spending years on these games, like, just show us. That's all we're looking for. Just show us. Point 2. Alright, so moving along through the trailer.
You stupid.
They're not.
I have to say, they really captured the somber, monotone mood, especially from the South Korean soldier's perspective, which feels grounded, it feels pretty genuine, right? When the American Marine discovers the North Korean leader and how young he is, there's a sense of shock. But for the South Korean soldiers, that's just their life. That's the norm. They've been dealing with that for years. Honestly, since the end of World War II, they've had the DPRK, and then, of course, there's the grandfather, the father, and now this leader, we'll say. We won't say his actual name. So, honestly, I do find it hard to believe that a Marine station in Korea would be so unaware of the Supreme Leader, or any service member for that matter, unless he's been living under a rock. Like, still, it highlights how Call of Duty is playing up the fear factor, like using an unknown and expected to ramp up the tension, right? Like, oh my gosh, he's only in his 30s and he's in charge of one of the most hermit nations in the world. Like, cool, bro. But let me ask you this, guys. Do you really think that even something like that is even, I don't know, do those moments really build up the campaign? Like, one of the characters or even the main protagonist really being like, oh my gosh, did it really happen? Do you guys really feel that adds to the storyline? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, So let's continue along with something interesting. I noticed that the developers are still putting in some freaking cringy dialogue, which is so disappointing. Around a minute and 38 seconds in the trailer, the character says,
"We make our own rules of engagement now."
like, that line just felt so forced and unsettling. And obviously it's not in a good way. But because it just seems like the writers are trying way too hard to make the story something it's not. Call of Duty has always been about straightforward linear gameplay. Hey, this bad guy, you take out bad guy, shoot gun, right? When they start adding these over-the-top, zealous characters with dramatic lines, it really pulls me out of the experience. I'll admit, I haven't played a campaign start to finish in a while. Like, I can't even remember the last one when the game came out and I just sat down and played it. But if we don't acknowledge these storytelling missteps, like, it's so embarrassing to even hear it. We must give feedback about it. They're just going to keep pumping out these stories like the last one, which honestly was absolutely vomit-inducing. You cannot tell me that Black Ops 7 was an enjoyable campaign. You absolutely cannot tell me it was. Alright, we're still going. Moving through the trailer at 1:58. I noticed what looked like North Korean soldiers going door to door, searching for what they called a defector. This actually gave me a bit of hope. I was like, bro, we might actually see a perspective we haven't gotten in Call of Duty before. What happens when a small, under-equipped, and misinformed army, trying to be politically correct here, starts pushing for a conflict to root out the traitor? Could this trigger an all-out war, a smaller clash, or something like the Cold War scenario? Well, it struck me that despite 6 or 7, yeah, I did it, futuristic Call of Duty games later, the franchise has rarely tackled, or hasn't actually at all, a Korean perspective. Now, to be fair, I think the developers may have shelved this idea because of global tensions. And if you remember 2014, a movie called, I don't know, The Interview, it probably made Korean-themed games too hot. And no one wanted to go near that. Probably even radioactive. More radioactive than Chernobyl. Like, come on now. But I'm really curious to see if Call of Duty will finally do something new with this storyline. Or if it's just going to fall back on the same old formula that, well, parts of the review trailers already started to show. So, lastly, as I kept watching the trailer, I found myself increasingly disappointed. It started with a real promise, a new, more realistic setting. Well, kind of not really. But then Call of Duty quickly fell back on its more usual formula. More lackluster Michael Bay style action scenes and the return of the same protagonist from the previous games. Sure, it might be a continuation from the 2023's Modern Warfare 3, but it feels like a missed opportunity. They could have truly explored the fears and the daily struggles of the Korean people living under a dictator who openly threatens their way of life. Instead, we're getting more and more of the same when there was a real chance for something meaningful. Alright, what should they do next? Well, that is a loaded statement, and honestly, I don't think I have enough info to make that determination yet. From what I've seen so far, which is mostly the story mode and a few minutes of the gameplay from the big content creators who are testing the alpha, as I mentioned previously, it gives Modern Warfare 2019 vibes, but it almost feels like a reskin with a few movement tweaks. But to be fair, that's just my early secondhand impressions, right? And it's funny enough, as I was working on this script, and yeah, breaking the fourth wall here, I watched a YouTube video with Infinity Ward promising that everything is going to be relevant and community driven. Like, they're going to keep the skins relevant, they're not going to do all these crazy things. Yeah, right. If you followed the franchise and you were not born yesterday, we've all heard this before. Now, still, I'm staying optimistic, and I'm willing to give them a chance. Like, I actually bought Black Ops 7, and I have less than 10 hours of gameplay, so I mean, I know I'm going to buy this next game. I know I am. It's going to happen. But what about you? Are you giving Infinity Ward another shot, or is it time to call it quits with this franchise? Let me know in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much for watching.